All right. Good morning, everyone. I hope you all can hear me. My name is Matt Clark. I'm going to be the moderator of this session. And our previous speaker, unfortunately, he was sick and wasn't able to attend today. So we decided to get a panel of his peers. And I think they have a lot of good information to provide for us. I do have a list of questions to ask them, but if you have any questions that you would like to ask, if you could just put in the chat box, and at the end of the session, I will ask them your questions. Um, uh, Hopefully that makes sense. And any questions or concerns before we get started? Nope. All right. All right. If you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about yourself and what got you into education. And we can start with Dana.
Oh, okay. So I'm Dana Falkenberg, currently with Springfield Local Schools in Holland, Ohio. I've been with that district for 22 years as both a teacher, building administrator, and central office administrator. Prior to that, I left when I left Bowling Green State University and finished my undergrad. I went and taught in California at two different school districts for a total of 9 years before coming back to be at Springfield. And the reason that I would say I went into teaching, I was sparked as a second grader. My teacher asked me to help a fellow student who couldn't seem to find the need or the ability to learn to tell time. And as a second grader, I was able to put him in some kind of a scenario that made him feel like he would need to know that, and helped him learn that rather quickly. And it was such a cool feeling. That was my motivation and what kind of drove me moving forward to always try to help others when I can. And that led me into the teaching profession.
Thank you. Letha.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Letha Ferguson. This is my 26th year in education. And I currently am the academic principal at Toledo School for the Arts. I've been with TSA since, well, I don't know, 14 years now. And this is my 6th year as the principal. I got into education a little later, I guess, in my life, not straight out of college. My brother was a teacher, and I think I'd always probably been of a mindset of a teacher, but didn't quite realize it until I was probably 28 or so. And so then I chose to move back to the Midwest from California after a certain earthquake kind of rattled my world in the Bay Area, and I needed to get back to solid ground. So I came back and pursued education at that time, and have loved my path ever since.
Brent.
Hi, my name is Brent Swartzmiller. I am the only panel member that didn't live in California. Apparently, I wasn't courageous enough. This is my 29th year in education. I started my career in Fremont schools as a teacher and a year as an assistant at the junior high. Spent 2 years in Elmwood as an elementary principal. Spent 5 years in Maumee schools as elementary principal and assistant and AD at the high school. And this is year 16 in Perrysburg, where I served as elementary principal, junior high principal, and now in my role as executive director of teaching and learning for 16 years in Perrysburg now. I got into education, I think, because I was not blessed to have the best of experiences as a K-12 student. I actually thought that school was very hypocritical, and the haves and the have-nots, that whole game, and just wanted to get in and help provide a positive experience for students going through their K-12 learning experience. So.
Okay. Thank you. What is the best thing about teaching? Do you think is the best thing about teaching? But
I'll let you guys jump in. I don't have to go first every time.
We can go the same order. I like it.
You like that order.
Yeah. Go ahead, lead
I'll-
off.
No, I'll start. It took me a little bit to figure this out. I've mostly been with about 5th grade on up. And having done some, teaching and student teaching and that sort of thing in the 5th grade, those students wear their heart on their sleeves, and they'll tell you in just a split second whether they like you or not. It's much harder at the high school level. And I think the thing that I really have grown to appreciate is, and Katie had mentioned this a little bit, is that notion that you don't know what kind of an impact you're having on children until all of a sudden a kid says something that just surprises you like crazy. And that feeling of, oh my gosh, I never knew that kid was paying attention. They were squirrely the whole time. I had no idea, or whatever. That feeling will stick with you for a very long time and sustain you, because again, sometimes it's difficult to kind of read teenagers, and they tend to not want to share out and embarrass themselves in front of their peers and all. But it's the one truism, I think, in education, that you really do have a tremendous impact without even knowing it.
Agreed. True. I think this is hard to isolate into like a elevator speech. So if I were to really hit just the main points for me, I think they steer around both impact that Letha was referring to, and also the relationship building. I sort of put teaching in its own circle of it's unlike any other career because of the opportunities to build relationships that exist, relationships with your students in their classroom, relationships with their families, and then know that even though those relationships in that specific venue might be short-lived, it could be, depending on what you teach, it could be for a year, it could be for a semester, it could be for a trimester, but those don't ever really end. You've probably heard teachers say, once my child, always my child, once my student, always my student, once my kid, always my kid. You have this connection, this ownership, this passion, this pride in what those kids go on to accomplish when they leave you. For those who come back and tell you, and even for those who don't. There you just cannot put a price on, or or quantify the impact or the way that affects you, if relationship building is a part of what makes you tick. If that defines who you are, then you can't really find a career that's going to fulfill you the way that teaching fulfills you. To me, that's probably what sets us apart. You can be a doctor, but those are really much more snapshots in time. Teaching, you spend such quality time, and to really impact students, you get to know them in a way that helps you do that. I do think that's one of the struggles for new teachers, is knowing what that relationship, how that relationship works, but that's maybe another question that we get to later. But again, for me, I think both what Lisa said with the impact and the relationship building side of it is where you just can't, you can't beat the profession.
Yeah, and I would, just to expand on that a little bit, a plug for the Perrysburg mission statement, ensuring all students achieve their greatest potential. Of course, we want to see students grow. And take them to their furthest capabilities and have them leave us and be able to do and enter any field that their passion sends them. However, I go back to the relationship, and I guess after listening to our speaker just a bit ago, I think that it is about the connection. And I can't say it much better than Dana just said it, but I would probably add too, it's connection, of course, with our students, but it's colleagues and families. I mean, I run into former parents of students at the grocery store, and not to be hallmarky, but there is a warm feeling like a lost friend that I'm running into again. I mean, and part of that's being an elementary principal, right? Everybody loves the elementary principal, but there's a connection you have with people when you're helping folks and giving your best to help folks, and people see that, and you connect in a strong manner. And the other thing I might add is this profession is a challenge. It's the hardest job in the world. I'm sorry, it is. High school teachers get really upset when I say your job's not the hardest. The hardest job is getting kids to read, period. It's just a hard job. My daughter's in her first year at Cincinnati, studying to be an engineer, and she's got sort of this I got the hardest major attitude, and I just shake my head like, yeah, I know it's hard, but we're working with really complex people every day, dealing with a variety of things that we cannot even anticipate, and trying to move the bar with 25, sometimes more, unique personalities in front of us. There's no harder job in the world than being a teacher. So if you're up for a challenge, this is the field.
Thank you. Now, thinking about teacher candidates, what are your districts looking for in teacher candidates? Brent?
Oh, I'm looking to steal from my partners here, try to steal the best and the
You mean
brightest.
teacher candidates
Yeah.
or?
The easy answer is we want it all, right? We want the complete package. But the reality is, I think we want folks that yeah, are well versed, well knowledgeable, but also are yearning to grow and learn every day. We want their best self in their last year, not their first. We had our new teacher academy this year, and with our folks that we just brought on board to our district, and I shared that if your best year is this year or 2 years from now, we don't want you the rest of your career. We want you to be better every single year. So I think the desire to grow and learn, be confidently humble, confident in what they do, but humble in that they know there's more. The want to contribute to a greater good, to be a member of a team. You're not in a solo profession. And I think with candidates, it's their ability to share that eloquently, obviously, in an interview to us, but also have experiences that sort of back that. The experiences of being able to articulate how they started and where they are now and why and what happened to make them get there. The experiences of volunteering and jumping in, going above just what's asked of them, but seeking opportunities to be members of a team environment or working with students. So, and whoever they like, I want first. Especially.
Wow. Yeah.
So Brent said that very well. I often talk about confidence without arrogance. You may have said it better with confidence, but being humble. Maybe that's a more positive way to say it. But that is any interview panel I've sat on, regardless of the question, I'm looking to hear that this is someone that's not going to, crumble in a classroom. They're going to be able to hold themselves up and hold their head held high and work together and see themselves as a contributing member of a team. But at the same time, when given constructive criticism or feedback that helps them grow, they're listening to that, accepting that, and using that to become a better educator because they see themselves as lifelong learners. Anytime that I've worked with a new teacher through an evaluation process or whatever, if they're giving me excuses instead of showing me how they're going to make a change, I lose hope that they're going to become a solid educator. So my message to teacher candidates in this realm about what our district's looking for, it's always someone who is confident enough to get off the ground, but also willing enough to learn to be better. Because I've been in this gig for 31 years, and to me, learning is like breathing. If you can't continue to see ways that you're going to get a little better every day, you're not going to live long in this field. And if we needed a bigger smack in the face to learn that, it was, COVID was there for us, right? We all had to learn to do what we do differently. And now we're learning to adapt and work with clients, customers, families, children, whose circumstances are very different than when, just 5 years ago. So agree. I think flexibility plays into that too. To be willing to be a part of the organization and be flexible to the organization's needs and to the family's needs and to the students' needs. That's a hard thing to imagine as you're coming through your 4-year program. But it is the reality of any school district right now.
I'll just add to, everything that they've said, certainly. So as the principal of Toledo School for the Arts, we're a small school, one school, one district. We have 730 students now. 2 years ago, replaced in the academic side of the house, as opposed to the arts side. We had 13 new teachers. It was the biggest sort of turnover year we had. It was just a couple years after COVID, I think. There were all kinds of different reasons for that, but those 13 teachers all kind of banded together as brand new, and they were all brand new except for one who was returning to the profession after years being off for child rearing and that sort of thing. But those 12 brand new teachers, all 13 are back this year, which I was really happy for because they're all wonderful. Most of them BG graduates, which was really nice. But the one thing that this year that they talk about is just how much easier year 2 was than year 1. Year 1 was so hard for them all. They cried on each other's shoulders. They helped build each other up. There were the good times, the bad times, but they learned so much. They're back this year, and they, as we told them, year 2 will be better, and it absolutely was for all of them. But to go back to the original question, that what I look for, I want to find somebody who's had experience outside of the college experience and the teacher candidate experience, typically with children. Sometimes it can be in other fields as well, but definitely be looking for opportunities to work with children through the summer, summer camps, get a job with places where you are doing that, or even customer service isn't a bad experience to get because you're having to work with people. All of that experience is actually going to benefit you in the long run to manage and know people and work with people, because that's what you have to do with families.
Okay, thank you. You've answered my next question I was going to ask, which was, what are you looking for, or what can new teachers or university students do to kind of stand out from each other? So I think you've touched on that a little bit. Um, so what skills are really important for new teachers? What would you say, Dana?
Um, so it sounds like most pre-service teachers at this point are getting a glimpse at the OTES rubric. So that kind of goes without saying that those skills are things that we're building towards. I think understanding that no one expects you to be skilled across the board or even necessarily enter into accomplished in your first year. That's a growth model. So to that end, I think reflection is key. Having the skill set and the understanding to make yourself reflect regularly on your practice, on the impact that you're having on students, on the instructional decisions that you make and how those impact students, on the communication you have. Is there a way that better communication with home could impact your classroom? Do I need to revise my classroom management plan because it's not working? Do I need to stick to my classroom management plan because I put it out there, but I'm not following it? Like, how do you reflect and see ways that you can become a better educator every day? The empathy component that we talked about earlier today, I don't feel like I need to belabor that point because it was so well put. But that's a huge piece of what we look for. And balance. I always want people to be energetic and enthusiastic, but I also want them to be realistic and know that you can find the means to have balance in your life. Because, with all of the things that we've talked about the importance and the difficulty of this position, keeping yourself in the space where you can be effective is important. I'll let you guys weigh in now on that one.
So I might bridge this one with also standing apart when you're getting hired. Because I often think, like, we've all been through, the three of us have been through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interviews. And sometimes it's easy for us to go on a rant about what not to do in an interview versus the things that really truly stand out. And to me, the things that have stood out sometimes are those candidates that seem to own their path, seem to not be the victim, seem to, this happened to me, this is what I did. They charted their journey. And we all face adversity, but what do you do in that adversity? They owned it. It's not being done to them. And then they also have the ability to personalize that experience. It's not a buzzword bingo interview. It's, yeah, they use the word, but then they contextualize it in describing their path and their journey with it and put it into and own it. And I think it's important for new teachers to, as Dana said, reflect, but then also own your year. It's not done to you. You're a professional now. We're giving you the keys to the car. Drive it. You're driving in your classroom. And we want teachers to own their world. Take control. We don't want perfect. There's no such thing. We want teachers that love students and do all they can for their students. And I'll also go back to, there's a part of our world where we have to remember to be unselfish. We had a very successful women's cross or girls cross country team, and I listened to their coach, and his pregame to them down at state championships was be unselfish. And it was a little odd because you think of cross country as this individual I'm running against my time, but it is individual, yet they're a part of a team. And when you get into your classroom, it's your room. You can shut the door. You'll feel like it's yours, but you're also part of this greater good. And his message was, when you're in the second mile, you need to be unselfish and push for you, but also for your teammates. As a teacher, that whole notion of what I'm doing impacts the person after me. I'm handing my students off to the next person. So it's unselfish in understanding the big picture, and that you're part of a big puzzle. We have almost 400 teachers in our district right now. That's huge. And yes, we have teachers make a difference, but we need 400 teachers to make a difference. We need 400 outstanding teachers, but also know their place on their staff and be a good staff and teammate, and know that what they do needs to impact the people around them. So I hope I said that the right way.
Kind of along lines of what Brent was saying, in the sense of I think we're all making the assumption that every participant here is perhaps in your student teaching year as opposed to a first year teacher. But either way, when you're going for that interview, you want to be in that reflective realm. You want to be able to have a authentic kind of conversation that says, here's what I went in thinking, this is what I tried, and it didn't really work, and here's why, and here's how I tried it a little differently to make it go better. And if you're able to even understand enough with children and how they learn and how they grow, and be able to explain it in that way, to me, I know I'm working with somebody who has learned from the good preparation that they've had at their college, and they're realizing that there's so much more to teaching than just, here's a textbook and I'm helping them read it. Teaching is so much more, and it's really kind of understanding all the different ways that different children learn and different children get motivated, and that sort of thing, and being able to connect to those concepts, and kind of having an inkling of that through your teacher preparation process will help to stand out amongst other individuals who are also new, and perhaps helping, at least from that standpoint, for you. Not too articulate right now.
Just fine.
All right.
So in your experience, what are some common challenges that new teachers face, and how can they overcome these challenges? Letha.
I think it's a challenge for many new teachers communicating with parents. And again, I'm speaking from the standpoint of middle school to high school, which is slightly different than elementary, only that in the sense that you typically have a room of 20, 25, so you have 25 parents, whereas a middle school to high school, you have perhaps 120 parents and families. And kind of being proactive in the sense of, reaching out to those parents early. That can be done through, a syllabus or a newsletter type of thing. It can be done through individual contacts. Taking time in a week to send home a note to parents about their student, that is positive. If you do that from the get-go, kind of on a regular basis, you are beginning to lay the foundation of really good relationship building, so that when you do have to maybe have the conversation that says, I'm really sorry, but Billy's not getting the work done that he needs to be able to practice and get better at thus and such. It's an easier thing than just that being the only time you've ever contacted a parent. And so getting over that notion of that communication. I know today communication is almost entirely texting and on phone, but feeling confident in personal contact with those family members is a great thing. Go to their shows, go to their track meets or whatever, and congratulate the parent of the kid who did well in that, and have those conversations.
So I'd like to kind of tag on to what Letha was just saying, because when I look at this question, I look at two components of it. And the first one is what she said about communication. And if I go all the way back to my undergrad as a communications major, look at a communication model about sender, message, and receiver. And what's changed in that 30 years is we have all kinds of new ways to communicate, to get the message across. But it only matters when the message is received. So as a sender, we can say, I've done this, this, and this. But if the message hasn't been received, the communication has failed. So when we go back to that building relationships that we started with, you're not getting there if the message hasn't been received by the parents. So we can't just assume I've covered myself by throwing this out there. I have to really think about if this is a connection I need to make. And more often than not, when a child is struggling, you do need to make that connection. Consider all of your options for communication and what one vehicle is going to work for that parent that you're going to be able to build that relationship for. That sounds like a monumental task when you talk about having 180 kids in your day, but you're not going to need to do that with all 180 kids. Those kids that are excelling, you can do whatever message makes sense because the parents are going to seek that out. The kids that are struggling are the ones that you've got to really target the communication process for, and really think about it from how is this person I'm trying to communicate with going to receive it best? How do you put them as a member of your team? If they see you as someone who's working with them as a team to help their child's success, they are also going to go to the ends of the earth for you as the teacher. That is what truly sets apart our teachers who are successful with families of struggling kids, that they go to the length to do that. But the other piece that I think is, and that's not just something that first-year teachers struggle with. I think that's something that we have a lot of teachers struggling with, the communication factor and finding that right way to communicate with a family. But what's probably more specific to first-year teachers is classroom management. And so, I'm of the school of Harry Wong. So the classroom management plan that you establish at the start of the year and that you stick to and greeting your students at the door and all, it doesn't have to be his, but there needs to be a planned for classroom management plan. I would also suggest that you put that in front of either your mentor teacher, the team that you're going to work with, the assistant principal or principal that's in your building that you'll be working with, and get feedback before the school year begins so that your plan works with the school's system. What their experiences have been in trying to implement something like that. And then the hardest part of the whole thing is sticking to it. Making sure that if you've told kids this is what they should expect, then that is what they will see when it happens. There is some element of flexibility when you realize that something is not going as you'd planned it. That's where the reflection comes in. But there needs to be an understanding of if something happens, I know what the end result will be, for kids to be successful. Setting parameters and creating an environment where kids know what success looks like, both behaviorally and academically, is really a part of any good classroom management plan.
Yeah, I obviously kudos to the first two answers. They're very relevant, very on target. I would probably just add two things. When conversing, either with colleagues, students, or families, I think it's really important to be present and seek understanding versus having your answer ahead of time, or having the need to be right, or having the need to have your canned response. That is probably developed over time, and confidence and practice. But to truly listen to what folks are sharing with you, to try to empathize with what they're going through and what they're experiencing, and figuring out how to best help, is definitely a talent to develop. The other thing that I would add is, here in Perrysburg, we try to meet with our new staff a couple times a year, just to, how is our onboarding going? How are you doing? But I would add, to have the courage to seek support and help. Sometimes our pride gets in the way, or we have this misnotion that, oh, it'll be a sign of weakness if I ask for help. You're going to need help. We all do. It's, have the courage to raise your hand or seek help. And I lied. I'm gonna put one more in there. And I think it's good for anybody in any profession, is to try to have a mentor, or a go-to person, to go to, a safe person, if you will. Preferably somebody in our business, that knows the ins and outs. And it doesn't have to be someone in your building. It doesn't have to be someone in your district. I have several in other districts that are just buddies of mine, that it's just refreshing to share experiences and get advice. That doesn't mean you have to take it every time. Sometimes you should, but it's just refreshing to have people to decompress, because we all need it.
Okay, thank you. This next question, it's from the audience, and but it kind of ties into this other question. This next question I was going to ask you is, they want to have a family sometime, but they're very passionate about teaching. How can they do both? What are some ways of maintaining a healthy work-life balance?
So I think at any point in my career, I've had to practice this, and I'm not always great at it, but those who can follow through on it do the best. And that's, you literally have a calendar, whether it's a Google Calendar, whether it's a day planner, and you block out your times and keep them sacred. If you know that you haven't planned for the week, if you plan ahead of time, plan the sequence for the week, and then you just need to plan in chunks, then you put bigger block of time for your planning at one part in the week and smaller sections throughout your day. For me as an English teacher, grading was like the worst part of my job. But I started to learn that my mind works best in the morning. So I made sure that morning time was what I blocked out for myself for grading, because I could really be on it. I had less other, once the headache happened or whatever else happened, I could very much say, well, I can't be as objective as I need to be to grade today, so I better put that off. I can't afford to do that if I want to stay true to my calendar and blocking out of my time. But really, blocking out your calendar, making time for those important pieces, and then honoring that. And some of that is self-care. Some of that is family time. That has to be blocked into your schedule for your 24-hour day, the same way that the school side and the work side of things have to be blocked out. And you do have to hold those things sacred, because being a parent is the most important thing that you do, but it also is very positively influences yourself as an educator because it creates an empathy. You can understand how a parent feels, or you can understand the importance of, you can put yourself in that position and in the shoes of what would I want for my child. So we never want to give the impression that you can't do both. But you are going to have to plan and be able to stick yourself to that schedule, I think, to be the best at both.
You know, I would say that you absolutely can do it. I'm a little partial, but my wife's a teacher and a fantastic mother, so it absolutely, and her mom was too. I sound like a Forrest Gump movie, right? But you know, the work-life balance is a funny notion, I think. And I'm going to recommend this book. It's called Tribe of Mentors by Timothy Ferris. He interviewed over 100 like highly successful people and asked them the same 10 questions. And one of them dealt with work-life balance. There's a variety of thoughts to this, right? But there was one person who pushed back a little bit. And I'd like to share it. And it doesn't mean I 100% agree with her, but she pushed back and said, I don't believe in it. Because I think if you're passionate about what you do, you live and breathe it all the time, and you can't quadrant yourselves off, because sometimes you get energy from your passion. And so that hit me in that, you know, we're all analytical and go, oh, I got to split my day. I got to do this. I got to do that. It made me pause to say, maybe we don't have to do that, but we need to know ourselves and what brings us energy and what doesn't bring us energy. And we need to find our personal strategies to know what our energy givers are and takers are. And I'm glad that Dana brought up morning, because as I've gotten older, I know that morning's my time too. And I've learned eventually later during the day to just put it down, because it's not going to be very good, knowing that I'm going to get up jazzed up, ready to go, and it's going to be much better, and to not stress out about it. But it's taken a lot of time to do it. I think that balance thing is so personal, though, that it is an individual journey that needs to be sought. But there's hundreds of strategies. And again, this book, Timothy Ferris, Tribe of Mentors, fantastic.
I personally am not a parent. I'm a great aunt, and I've been told by my nephews and nieces that I am a great aunt. But I've definitely watched young teachers who are parents, and I've seen kind of a couple of different things. I currently have a brand new teacher this year who's an alum of our school, so she kind of already had a leg up on what the school's all about. She's a math teacher. She came in and started teaching her first year this year with an under 1-year-old at home. And it's been really tough for her to kind of grapple with how much time is actually needed to devote to teaching, and obviously how much time was needed to devote to her little one, even to the point of, you know, when am I able in the day to find a space, close and lock my door, and, you know, do some pumping for, you know, the feeding necessities of the child. So she's really had to, you know, balance that. It is absolutely possible to do so. I will say it doesn't come, especially when they're little ones. I've seen, you know, the mothers, especially the mothers, that like coming back from summer break is just so hard, because you've just had all of this time to devote to family, and now all of a sudden that ends, and the little one is upset because mommy's no longer there, or even daddy, you know, those kinds of options. But it's still possible, and certainly should not be something that is seen as impossible. You'll just have to kind of build your stamina for the time that is necessary for both of those things.
All right, well, unfortunately, we are out of time. I do want to thank our panel for presenting today and asking questions and being flexible to answer questions for us. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the nice cool weather that we're having outside, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. For everyone else, if you are going to move to a different room, please log out of this room and then go to your next one. I have been told that if you're planning to join room 6, to check your email. They're having trouble with links, and so check your email with that and then log into that. All right, thank you very
Great.
much, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.